Thank you, Pritha. Thank you, Priscilla. And thank you, everybody, for coming here. Every time we organize this, every time I'm on the stage, it is it's a mixed feeling, right? I'm always very nervous, at the same time, very, very excited when I'm coming here. We try to organize this event to express gratitude to our clients and senior industry professionals who've been through us for a very, very long time now. It's my 7th year of entrepreneurial journey, and it is nothing but overwhelming. So last year when we organized our Leadership Conclave 3.0, we were talking about sustainable agility. We spoke about how companies need to pivot. There was a lot of focus on startups. We discussed how companies need to pivot in terms of uncertainty that's there around the businesses. Well, that uncertainty continues to remain there, right? But again, we as a business, we have to move on. So today I'm going to talk about myself, right? My name is Vikash, and we're going to talk about growth strategies today, right? So when we talk about growth strategies, there is a couple of studies that we carried out in. All right, so we'll continue, right? We value your time more than all these technical snacks. So when we talk about revenue strategies, right? Of course, when we talk about business valuation, so revenue stands at the center of any valuation. Now, there have been multiple studies that have been created which says that for every 5 percentage point revenues per year, right, you can have a total shareholder return of about 3 to 4 percentage points. Now, that means we are talking about a revenue multiple of less than 1. But at the same time, over a longer period, this can translate into 35 to 45% increase in market capitalization over a decade. Now, this is a global data that has been carried out by McKinsey, covering over 5,000 listed organizations over a long period of time. So we know the importance of revenues, right? What we're going to do is we're going to talk about 3 broad areas. We're talking about inorganic and organic growth strategies. We will talk about sustainability, and we'll talk about compliances and governance. So when we talk about organic and inorganic growth strategies, one of the most important things, and that's continuation from what we discussed in our previous conclave as well, that companies need to focus on their core competencies. I mean, there are very few businesses who've been able to sustain growth going beyond their core competencies. 80% of the company's valuations are coming from their core competencies. But at the same time, when companies are expanding beyond, right, they can have expansion in terms of products or in terms of geographical expansion. Even in case of products, companies are being successful only when they are able to expand in the adjacent areas or adjacent businesses and not into extremely diverse businesses. At the same time, when we are talking about expansion into geographical locations, we discussed this last time as well, and that study continues to reinforce itself, that be a local hero first before going into global markets, right? We coming across a lot of startups who try to, because they think that it's all technology and technology can expand into different areas at the same time. The problem is how do you manage the supply chain when you are growing, right? So be a local hero first before you expand into other businesses. We've come across a couple of stories. Now, oftentimes when we talk to some of our more established clients, they face problems in terms of saying that, okay, for example, what kind of disruption can we bring in steel? What kind of disruption can we bring in automotives, right? So here's a classic example of Tesla. You see some of the numbers on the screen. 2013, Tesla delivered 22,000 vehicles in a year. 2023, it delivered 1.3 million vehicles in a year, and this is a 9-month data for 23. Tesla finishes its book in the month of September. 2013, it had a revenue of about $2 billion. 23, it had a revenue of $96 billion. Look at the growth in a 10-year period. Similarly, when we're talking about net income or profits, Tesla was into losses in 2013, but look at the profits today, right? It's the poster boy of cars across the world, and we know that, right? Now, I've had the privilege of driving Tesla while I was in the US. In fact, I also was part of a Tesla ordering program. Like one of our clients and a family member was ordering a Tesla. And at the same time, we recently bought a car ourselves here. Now, when you buy a car, I'm sure most of you have a car here. When you buy a car, try to recall the experience of buying a car, right? You're going to multiple vendors, you do a lot of driving tests. There are salespeople who are behind you, telling you features, telling you plans, and so on and so forth, right? It's a very, very tedious process. On the other hand, practically, you buy a Tesla online, right? You go to their online portal, you decide on the product, you select the product features that you want in a Tesla, you make an online deposit, and boom, you've got your Tesla booked, right? Whatever ordering time, whatever transit time they have, you don't get that Tesla tomorrow in your garage, but the ordering process is very, very streamlined. At the same time, now of course, it's an electrical vehicle, right? I'm not sure how many of you are aware in terms of the number of components that goes behind a car today in India, right? Or any car for that matter. As compared to that, Tesla has got almost 10% of the components that goes into any other car, right? Now, one would imagine that a Tesla is a very expensive car, but think about it. At the end of the day, you talk about something called a cost of ownership, and the cost of ownership of a Tesla vehicle is very, very, very low, right? You front load some of that expense for sure, but that cost of ownership is very, very low. So, in fact, Tesla is continuing to invest into battery technology so that they are enhancing the features. We've seen those car shows, right? It has a fantastic feature of it dances. We call it the dancing car, right? That's a dancing car feature that Tesla has. You just turn it on and it will play music. The window shades will go up and down. The car doors will open, right? We had that RRR show. I'm sure many of you must have seen that on the internet. So that's the kind of revolution that one can bring into an industry which is as old and as conventional as an automobile vehicle. Now, the other interesting growth strategy is something called category creation. Now, and it said that it's one of the most unique ways of creating growth or establishing growth for that matter. Think about Starbucks, right? For something as simple as a beverage. Now, interestingly, market rewards category creation companies which create categories, and it rewards to the extent of $5.6 in market cap for every $1 increase in revenue. That's the global data again. And see what happened in case of Starbucks. It was observed that between 2000 and 2010, right, the per capita consumption of coffee was going down in the US, but the coffee market was going up, meaning that people were consuming less coffee and they were paying more, right? And that market continues to grow even today, even despite the fact that we are talking about coffee is caffeine and it is not good for you and blah, blah, blah. Right? But what did Starbucks do? It revolutionized the whole coffee drinking experience by reinventing that coffee house concept, right? And so that's how Starbucks has grown, right? And we've seen a lot of companies replicating that model in India and elsewhere in the world as well. So again, category creation is a very interesting way of developing or creating growth. When we talk about growth, we also talk about organic and inorganic growth, and we have a very, very, very august panel here who will talk about some of those factors here, right? And interestingly, Byjus has been our client in the past, but although we are not working with them today, but they've done some wonderful things, right? Which keeps them which helps us bring them back into our stories as well, right? So for all the good and the bad things they've done, one of the interesting things that they did was they acquired by Akash Institute. They've done a lot of acquisitions for that matter, right? Now, I'm sure most of you are following that story, at least in parts, and you see that for everything that has gone down or gone wrong for Byjus, Akash Institute stands out as a crown jewel for them, right? It is one of those companies where the investors are now lapping onto it, saying that, hey, we need you. Right? Now, interestingly, last year also we spoke about this, that why did Byjus acquire Akash Institute? Because remember I spoke about expanding into different product markets. For Byjus, Akash was a very natural choice, because from being into an online company to an offline company, if they had to go into an organic growth, they would have to take a lot of bets, right? Whether they will succeed in the offline market or not. They would still have to compete with the likes of Akash. Acquiring them was definitely a good strategy. But beyond that, right, one of the things that it did better was it did not mess around with its operations, right? We talk about financial acquisitions and strategic acquisitions, right? It was a mix of both financial and strategic acquisitions. Today, Byjus is able to leverage on Akash's valuations primarily because it did not mess around with its core operations at all. If it would have completely integrated the operations, then God knows what would have happened. So we will talk about a little bit of acquisition strategies as well. Moving on to sustainability, now a lot of clients that we speak to, a lot of professionals that we speak to, they think that sustainability is more of a compliance issue, right? For whole ESG framework that we are talking about, bolte Western dunya ke chochle hain, right? But for those of you who are getting into that space, you realize that it is a wonderful thing to be in, right? I'm sure some of you saw that recent video where a tiger was picking up a bottle from the jungle and he was walking. It just came 3-4 days ago, right? Imagine what are we doing to the environment around us, right? So while sustainability is definitely something that is required from a compliance perspective, but at the same time, we've been very privileged when we come across business models with some of our clients and we see value getting created and destroyed. Now, there are some of our clients who've done fantastic job in terms of sustainability, not only in terms of compliance, but in terms of value creation, right? So before we go into that, like for example, if you have something called a unique zero carbon product offering, there are opportunities out there where you can have offtake agreements with some of those clients, because clients will require products which are sustainable in the long run, right? So if you can have offtake agreements with them, you would be able to secure long-term contracts with them, and they will be able to secure long-term supplies in terms of carbon neutral products or zero carbon product offerings. And I'm not sure if Ankit is already here, but this is one of our clients who've been able to find gold from garbage. How many of you have seen AdmyBin around in Kolkata? Anyone has seen here, right? So AdmyBin is one of our clients, and Ankit has done a fantastic job. He says that I can find gold from garbage, right? What they have done is they have set up dustbins across the city, and they are now expanding it to other cities as well. They have a simple model that whatever goes into that garbage bin belongs to me, right? And that's it. And they've been able to secure funding, they've been able to reduce wastage, they've been able to, and of course, it's still work in progress, but fantastic job around sustainability. Another client, I don't know if Nandan is already here as well. Yeah, Nandan is here. So yes, Nandan Mal, he's founded Hulladek. Now imagine what happened to the phone that you discarded last time when you bought a new phone, right? Or what happened to the last television, right, that you exchanged, or a refrigerator that you exchanged. राइट आई एम ऑलवेज वेरी वेरी वरीड अबाउट, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली होता क्या है, उसका कोई रिप्लेसमेंट वैल्यू तो मिलता नहीं है, तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, उसको घर पे छोड़ देते हैं या किसी को दे देते हैं, बट वी डोंट नो व्हाट हैपन्स टू दैट प्रोडक्ट वंस इट इज डिस्कार्डेड, and it is a huge source of wastage for the world. It is, and Nandan is doing fantastic job in terms of e-waste management, right? He is here. Maybe some of you may want to talk to him and know about it in person. But again, it's a classic example of how sustainability can be a strong business model rather than just a compliance issue, right? And in fact, it's not only just startups, right? I mean, in fact, Unilever has also done similar things. So so globally, Unilever has set up a lot of their manufacturing plants in water scarce areas. And now in 2000, they started into regenerative agricultural practices, right? From 2000 to 2010, they were not able to reap any benefits out of it, right? So while it was good for the environment, but it was not getting converted into business profits. So ultimately, from 2010, they learned from their mistakes. They plowed back some of those practices. From 2010 to 2020, right, there was an increase in profit margins by 30%. Now, that's only available in the public domain. We'll have to find out more in terms of what they actually did that it enhanced the profits. But the key point is that sustainability measures can lead to profits as well. So we have some of our panelists here who are working very closely in the environment, sustainability space. I'm sure they will be able to throw some more light on it. Last thing, what do you see on this slide? What is your observation on this when you see this picture? No, what else? I mean, so this guy is a beggar from Bihar, right? And he has got both cash and online systems, right? If you want, if he's begging something, right? आप उसको cash में भी दे सकते हो और आप उसके PhonePe QR code को scan भी कर सकते हो, right? Now, till about 6 months ago, 1 year ago, we were very proud of this, right? That see, this is the level of digitization that we can see around, and there's no doubt about it that I mean, fintech, the whole fintech space, digitization has been a fantastic space story for India. But again, we can see a glass half full, half empty, right? I also see a lot of RBI pushbacks on PhonePe when I see this picture, because definitely this guy would not have done his KYC when he is getting money into his PhonePe wallet or a bank account, right? I don't know whether he would have done that or not, right? So when we talk about growth strategies, there are some things that pulls us back, right? That gravity does come into play. So we are looking at PayTM, we are looking at Byjus, we are looking at a lot of other stories where at one time they were the poster boys of our growth strategies, but at the same time now we are seeing them into a lot of trouble because they've not done their compliances, they've been questioned on their governance practices and so on. So again, our panelists here, I'm sure, will throw some light on what needs to be done on the compliance side, on the governance side. So, right, so that's about it from my side. Thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to a very, very insightful panel. I'm seeing the hall is getting full by now, right? And thank you so much for coming. Looking forward to hearing you all.
And now moving forward, I would like to introduce and extend a warm welcome to our